Oh, there we go. Oh.
Are we ready? Thank you. Lincoln City Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015. It is 6:02 p.m. We're in session. And stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Call the roll, please.
Sure. Gary Cunningham.
Here.
Nathan Long is absent and excused. Doug Bryson. Deanna Hinton is absent and excused. Steve Griffith.
Here.
Riley Hoagland.
Here.
And Bruce Robinson.
Here. Are there any changes?
The only thing is that at your seat is a draft final recommendation regarding the rezoning into the VR zone of the east side properties, and I guess we could consider that under old business. It's just saying that you're recommending that no properties on the east side be rezoned into the VR zone.
All right. Minutes. We have a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items or matters not involving a public hearing? Lewin, I see here you didn't indicate whether you were opponent or neutral. Are you going to speak on this, on the issue tonight? Okay. So we don't have...
Mr. Chair, actually,
Sure.
I think you do have somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Chester Norikis, 1421 Northwest 19th Street, Lincoln City. I'm just here to thank you all for the work you do for the city. I appreciate your help, and thank you for your time.
Chester, we thank you for your time as well. Are there any other public comments? Final orders, we're going to do that later. All right, public hearing. Can I get somebody else to read that bill?
Do you have the script?
I would just like somebody to read the bill for the PUD 2114 Olivia Beach Phase 3.
Do you want me to just read the script?
Please.
Okay, it is now 6:05 p.m. The public hearing for file PUD 2014-04 is now open. This public hearing concerns a request for a preliminary master plan for a residential planned unit development known as Olivia Beach Phase 3. The proposal is a residential planned unit development on 6.73 acres on the east side of Southwest Coast Avenue and south side of Southwest Bard Road. The Olivia Beach Phase 3 PUD proposes 47 lots. All lots will be developed with detached single-family dwellings. All of the subject property is in a multi-family residential RN zone. The applicant/owner is Walker John, care of Olivia Beach LLC. The Commission must take a few moments to cover preliminary matters and recording statements. Does any member of the Commission wish to declare an ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of a commissioner to participate in this matter? Seeing none, does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the commission to consider this matter? The phone is really ringing in my ear, so I don't know if it's coming across or not.
No,
It is.
oh, it is.
The following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code and ORS 197763 sub 5. Staff will now read a list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision.
The applicable substantive criteria are Lincoln City Municipal Code 1752-30, access requirements 1752-100, landscape requirements 1752-220, tree protection and removal 1752-210, planned unit developments 1716, single-family residential zone 160850, subdivision approval authority 1612, subdivision design standards, and 1720, multifamily residential RM zone.
All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria previously listed or such other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the decision maker to respond to the issue precludes any action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the end of this hearing, any person who participated may request a continuance to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence, or request that the record be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument, or evidence. Before the staff presents a report, I'd like to summarize the public hearing procedures which have been adopted by the Planning Commission and City Council. A brochure outlining procedures is at the entrance of the council chambers. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows: preliminary matters and required statements, staff report, questions of staff, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, requests for continuances or leave the record open, close of the hearing, close of the record, request to submit final written argument, deliberations, and decision. The city has established some time limits. The applicant will have 15 minutes and may reserve up to 5 minutes of that time for rebuttal. After the applicant testifies, any person may speak for up to 3 minutes. If the Planning Commission has questions, your time responding to any questions will not be counted in your time limit. If you wish to speak, please write your name and mailing address clearly on the sign-up sheet at the entrance. Please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name. If you also have written testimony to submit into the record, please provide a copy to the recorder. That's the end of the preliminary statements.
Thank you, sir. Could we have the staff report, please?
Thank you. We are talking about Olivia Beach Phase 3 Planned Unit Development Preliminary Master Plan this evening. I am showing you here a map that indicates the location. You can see the highway on the right-hand side, the ocean on the left-hand side. Olivia Beach 3 I have labeled. And you can see that also there's something about the neighborhood by looking at this slide. The Olivia Beach 3 is zoned for RM, residential multifamily zoning. To the east is the Agnes Creek open space, and the rest of the neighboring properties are zoned for residential use. There's just one little spot of R10, and then the orange is R15, and the yellow is R17.5. This is the plan. Oh, excuse me. This is the plan overlaid on top of an aerial photo. So you can see in this aerial photo the portion to the east is the old Hunters Highland subdivision, and it was subdivided a number of years ago, and recently Olivia Beach LLC purchased the property, and they are now building several homes in that subdivision. I also want to point out right in the middle is one lot that is not included in the planned unit development that's individually owned. and the owners here this evening. The balance of the planned unit development is in undeveloped property to the west of Hunter's Highland. And also for reference, this is the Olivia Beach Phase 2 down here to the southwest. All right, I'm going to show you some photos, but I just wanted to show you first, remove the aerial photo so you can see the layout better. This is in the Hunter's Highland portion. This is Dune Avenue, and Bard Road is on the north edge. Coast is on the west edge. And so I'm going to start showing you pictures starting from this intersection and then coming down Dune. So here we are at the intersection with Coast going that way and Bard going this to the left of the slide, or to the east. This is sort of at the top of the hill in Dune Avenue, looking north. Here is one of the new houses that has been constructed by Olivia Beach, and here are a couple more under construction. I also want to point out that Dune ends in a dead end here at the south end. When that was subdivided, the city required that they put in a stairway that now connects with the Agnes Creek Open Space Trail, so that turned out rather well. Okay, and then going down, now I'm back to the intersection and I'm looking south on Coast for the next series of slides. So this is the Olivia Beach, Phase 3 right here. And I'm going down a little bit further. This is Tract C on your map. This is the water pump station. And you can see in the background Olivia Beach, earlier phases. And turning around at the pump station and looking north, just so you get the full view. Okay, now RM zoning, residential multifamily. This allows detached single family, but it specifies that they must be developed to R1 standards, which is our single family zone. And it has one exception, and that is for lot coverage, and I'll hit that later. But in the R15 zone, it allows for 48 units when I go through the calculations in the planned unit development part of the code. The preliminary master plan proposes 47, so we're okay there. Steve Griffiths had asked me earlier about the VR zone, and because the applicant is also interested in applying for the new VR zone, how that would affect. That also has minimum square footage of 5,000, and that would be the key number in the calculation. So the calculation will still come out to 48 allowed units. Bruce, you're frowning at me, so
I was just remembering when we were talking about the detached RM with detached. I've kind of lost track of what the impact of VR was on that.
Yes, and Steve had that question also, so I might say a word about that. But this really, the VR zoning consideration is coming later. But when the city initiated changes to VR zone, we avoided the RM because in some ways that would be a down zoning. It would allow fewer units, per square footage. So we just avoided it because we didn't want to be responsible for down zoning somebody's property. That doesn't mean that that property in the RM zone cannot have, that doesn't mean it can't change to VR, but it means that the owners would be responsible for bringing that rezoning application to the city, and so that's what they will be doing, and we'll be considering that later. Okay, we have substantive criteria that, and we want to make sure that when we look at a planned unit development, it meets both the substantive criteria in the zones and in the subdivision ordinance, but also then the criteria specifically set out for planned unit development and your consideration. So first of all, I'll just say again, okay, the R1 zone standards apply to setbacks and height, and this is going to be a little bit different than in the Olivia Beach earlier phases because they had a regulating plan and a specific way of measuring height, which now, they don't have that for this particular part of it, Phase 3, and so we are going to be using our way of measuring height in the code now. Okay, and it's somewhat complicated, but it's something that the Planning Commission reviewed a couple years ago, and when we more clearly defined how to define height.
And the setbacks apply to the detached component as well.
Yes, so we clarified that at the site plan review meeting. That's their intent, that they will meet a 5-foot setback for a single story, and anything over a single story will require 7.5. But the one exception in the RM zone, it says R1 standards apply except for this 45% for building coverage. They call it lot coverage. Another substantive criteria is that city services are available. And we do have services that will be available with direct lateral services from Coast, Bard, and the new street Anemone. And they'll also be using Wayfinder for mains, and also a utility pedestrian easement, track G, on your updated plan. And so we are getting, in the original proposal, and Kate, did they get the update? Okay, all right. In the original proposal, the lots had these long, skinny flags that reached down to Coast in a lot of cases. And that was in order to have utilities go directly from the main to each unit. We don't allow the lateral services to cross other lots in order to serve a house. So anyway, the city and the applicant's team talked about this and figured out that we would prefer to have track G, which is a pedestrian utility easement that runs parallel and between Coast and Wayfinder. So you can see that on, maybe I'll just pop back here to the plan. I'm talking about G right here, track G, and that's where the utilities would go, and so that they would reach the services would extend directly to that, rather than trying to provide little easements or flags on each lot. And this also will serve as a pedestrian way, another way to walk from A to B. Okay. Another substantive criteria is the zoning and the subdivision lot requirements, and I've already mentioned setbacks. Lot depths here are approximately 58 feet. That's about the smallest, and then it goes up from there. Our maximum is 70, and so this is a variation in which the planned unit development does allow. It allows you to vary setbacks and other lot dimensions in order to achieve the best result in platting. So in the R15 zone, or in the RM, if you're building to R1 standards, you normally would have 5,000 square feet for each lot. In this case, the lots vary in size from a little over 3,000 to 7,000. Also, lot widths vary, and typically it would be 50 would be our standard. They are range from 43 feet and up. The one issue I did mention in the staff report is at the corner of Bard and Coast. That one is 43 feet, and it's about the narrowest one they have. And I was wondering if that was reasonable for an intersection like that. The lot is longer than some of the other ones. It's about 107 feet in depth, and so they could have some flexibility there in where they place the house if they want to move it a little bit back from the corner. I've heard from Rich Catlin, and he will probably talk about that later. He feels that they have an equally narrow lot on a corner in one of the earlier phases of Olivia Beach, and doesn't feel it's a problem. So I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more about that, and hopefully have a photograph maybe. Okay, another substantive criteria is an access requirement. Typically, we require each lot to have 25 feet of frontage on a public street, or a private street, but a street. And in this case, we do have some of the lots with considerable frontage on the streets, but we also have some of the lots that are served only by alley, and that would be the Wayfinder Lane. They don't consider it an alley, but it's not a street either, so it's something in between. I believe you can see the width on there. It's 20 feet. And also, we have a couple houses right at the end of Wayfinder on the newest revision that shows that they are flag lots now. So the Wayfinder does not extend the entire to those last two lots. So those are just flag lots, which means, when I talk about a flag lot, I'm talking about basically you have kind of your square part of your lot where your building would go, and then you have a narrow strip of 10 feet, in this case 10 feet in width, that extends to Wayfinder. So the two lots that are that rely on that kind of access would have to have a reciprocal cross access agreement, so that they would share 10 feet on each lot, or 20 feet total. So in fact, it would be as wide as Wayfinder.
Backing up a second to
Yes.
the Anemone Street,
Yes.
you characterize it as an alley, not necessarily a street, but...
Wayfinder.
Oh, Wayfinder, okay.
Mhm.
Is it like a standard width street, 20 feet wide, or is it
I have the plans with me.
significantly
It's
more narrow?
It's pretty narrow. I believe it's 20. Let's see if somebody back there can tell me. Yes, they're all nodding yes, it's 20 feet. Anemone is the new street in the subdivision. It's only about 400 feet in length, and it goes right up to the east edge of the subdivision, so that if property develops to the east, then that could be extended along with the utilities to new development to the east. And I will show you what I'm talking about in a little bit here. But that street is 24 feet in width, and it does have sidewalks. And at the site plan review meeting, we discussed they had landscape strips on both sides. We discussed having some bays for parking spaces on street that would be intermittently spaced with the landscaping, because we thought maybe it would be advantageous to have some extra parking. Okay, then we get into the planned unit development review criteria, and these are the 5-6 criteria upon which you're supposed to base your decision. First of all, we have compatibility, and that's compatibility with the surrounding area and with future development. We have broken that out for staff purposes into several sort of subheadings, because compatibility is sort of not that well defined. So we defined it by, and we did the same thing with previous subdivisions that we have reviewed recently. So first of all, we talk about the proposed use. It's single-family detached, and that's what's in the surrounding neighborhood. And also, I'd mention here the VRD option. I made a note in your No, I guess I was talking about density in the map, but I did mention that there are 20 VRDs within 300 feet of this preliminary master plan area. And and there are also lots of VRDs in Liberty Beach earlier phases and also along the coast. So I think it's reasonable to say that this is an area where VRDs would be fairly compatible with the neighborhood. It has similar density. The average square footage per lot is about 5,300 in this Olivia Beach 3. And I believe that's the map that I put in your staff report that shows and other subdivisions surrounding. It's around 6,000. It's 4,300 in Olivia Beach 2. Some of the subdivisions are a little bit more, but it's sort of in the middle. One of the letters that we got on this was talking about a rental office that had been adjoining their property in the past, but it has been moved to Highway 101, and the applicant's team, recognizes that this is not an area for rental offices, so that will not be a problem in the future. Okay, I did talk to you a little bit about anemone going through, and it's kind of faint here, but you can see that it goes right up to the property to the east. And I put our street lines for go down all the streets in bright pink so that you could see the break in connectivity right here. So we had anemone extended as if it may someday go through, in which case it could make an intersection with Dune, both north and south, where there is this gap. Yes?
Can you give us a little bit more background on that, what the intent of a potential push through there would be? Because I noticed that anemone was not on the map that was sent out in the notice of public hearing, and it would, if it does go through and one at some point connects with Southwest Dune, it would change transportation patterns south of Phase 3. So I'm curious, will anemone eventually go to Phase 4 of Olivia Beach, or what is the intent of bringing it right up to the eastern boundary there?
Well, the reason staff actually thought that was a good idea because we're looking at the long term. We don't, there are no, as far as I know, no immediate plans for any change to this area, and the city is not proposing anything. But when we look at the layout of the streets here, it seems like it could be a reasonable connection and may be advantageous at some point, and also provide access to lots if the owner of this property wanted to subdivide at some point.
It's a good bypass also for bad traffic days on 101.
Oh, that sounds like a threat. All right, so our next sub-criteria for compatibility is proposed density, and as I mentioned, the square footage allows for 48, the PUD proposes 47, and that is ends up being a 5,300 square foot average. The PUD utilizes existing adjoining streets, and I think that's one reason why maybe the actual lots are a little bit larger here than they were in the earlier phases of Olivia Beach. So out of the gross square footage, they didn't have to take much out for streets. Coast was already there, Dune was already there, and Bard was already there. And also the PUD includes 7 tracks that are not lots and will not be built on, and so that also adds to the square footage average per lot. As far as lot size, there's a lot of variation in the lots, shapes and sizes. I think that actually adds some interest rather than having exact like cookie cutter lots of this size. Appearance and ambience is one of the things that we consider when we're talking about compatibility. The trees on the property will be removed according to the landscape plan proposed. The arborist who did the report said that there were none that were significant. Some of them were in poor shape, but that they would all be affected by the development of the street or the individual homes because of the topography and the layout. The building and site design, they are intending to use the same CC&Rs, that's covenants, conditions, and restrictions, that are in place for the earlier phases of Olivia Beach. So a similar look is probably what we're going to expect. But they don't have a regulating plan, as I mentioned earlier, so that they will be having the 5-foot and 7.5-foot setbacks, and the height will be no more than 35 feet as we measure it according to the code. So years to completion, that's another criteria for your consideration. The application says that they will have it done within 3 years. During our site plan review, it sounded like it was going to happen a lot faster than that, at least to have the infrastructure put in place. And then the build-out would depend on how fast people come in and buy lots and ask them to build homes. So that, you know, and there's no guarantee about that. But as far as having the infrastructure in place, it's going to happen fairly quickly. The Planning Commission can set the preliminary master plan expiration date, but it has to be at least 2 years from the time of approval. So I mentioned here that it incorporates the failed Hunter's Highland because, you know, in previous reviews we talked about the number of lots available and so forth, but this actually incorporates some of those vacant lots that had been sitting there for quite a number of years and unused or underutilized infrastructure, which is now being used by the development that's going on. The earlier phases of Olivia Beach are filling up. They have been building steadily, even during the recession, and they do not do spec homes, so they're all made to order, basically. So, but that's been filling up phase 1 and 2, and so now they're making some more lots for expansion. Are you? No. Okay. Another review criteria is construction impacts, and this is for during construction, what are the impacts on the neighborhood? We did get a letter, as I said earlier, about some of the problems. I will mention that we do have a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. limit on noise, and I'm also proposing a condition that says the same would apply to the associated truck traffic.
That's 7 days a week?
Yes. Yes, I believe it is.
Could a condition be set that it only be 5 days a week?
I would think so. Richard Apicello, are you listening to us? The question is, does our 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. noise ordinance apply to 7 days a week? And if so, could they put on a condition that it be just 5 days a week?
Oh, that wasn't my question.
No.
My question was, could we limit construction work 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And, Richard?
No, you can't change the ordinance here with a condition of approval. You could, as you suggested, limit construction hours consistent with the authorization in the PUD code to address construction impacts. But if you want to make changes to the noise ordinance, that's the city council's job.
Okay. Prior to construction, the city will get a traffic control plan from the applicants, and that will talk about directing traffic around construction when it's going on and interfering with the normal traffic flow. We talked in the site plan review about Bard Road being the main access for construction vehicles. This, I understand, was the case for earlier phases of Olivia Beach. And Steve had talked to me earlier today about the dust that causes, and I thought that it might be a good idea to ask the applicants if there is something they can do to treat the gravel part of Bard Road to keep the dust down during construction. We propose washdown areas so that any vehicles that are leaving the site during construction are not tracking out onto the street, and that's a requirement from Public Works, and it's stated in our conditions. And of course, we do have an ordinance against burning, and also about the timing of permits. The grading and erosion control ordinances, well, the grading is allowed when there is an active building permit. So once the infrastructure is developed, then, you know, there will be no more grading until they're ready to start on a house. Another criteria for your review is impacts of the development on the area. The one thing that stands out here is the traffic impact analysis. It shows one vehicle every 2 to 3 minutes. It does not predict any undue or impact on intersections in the area, and but it does call out that some trimming needs to be done to improve the visibility at some of the corners, and some of those corners are Olivia Beach property, and they said that they would certainly go out there and take care of that. Yes?
Does the traffic impact analysis that was provided include the Hunter Highlands? It does not, right?
It would be in addition, yeah.
So we don't know what the traffic impact would be from the area that was formerly the Hunter's Highland.
Well, we've already approved, the city's already approved Hunter's Highland, so that's why they left that out, and they're just focusing on the new lots that would be created through this process.
So it doesn't have to be reapproved because Hunter Highlands has been incorporated into this phase?
Yes.
I would sort of like to have a big picture of, you know, what the traffic impact would be from the whole package, the whole phase 3.
Well, okay, so I assume that even though the traffic impact analysis did not include the Hunter's Highland lots as an additional impact, it must have included it as existing potential. And I may be wrong about that, so if our engineering staff wants to correct me, or if the applicant wants to correct me, they can. I welcome that. But, you know, they'll have their turn, I guess. The engineers, by the way, are welcome to come up anytime they want, our city engineers, if they have something to add. Okay, are we ready to go on? Adequate facilities in the area, and this would be, you know, our existing street system, and that's basically what they're relying on, plus an enemy. Adequate water pressure at the pump station, and adequate sewer. The Public Works is considers to be our facilities to be adequate to handle these new lots. Olivia Beach, and then, you know, I get the next one is the impact on the adequate facilities for the PUD itself. So this is just outside the PUD. Olivia Beach Phases 1 and 2 facility will accommodate stormwater from Phase 3. So, adequate facilities in the PUD now, and I know it's kind of a fine distinction. We do have, we're adding an enemy, we're adding sidewalks, stairs, and walkways within the subdivision. The developer will be responsible for any needed upgrades. For example, water pressure, because, you know, a lot of the site is uphill well, I guess it all is uphill from the, pretty much from the pump station. And so we may need more pressure if their initial report said it was adequate. But we'll make sure that it is. Yes?
Who is providing the sidewalk, stairs, and walkways?
That is part of the development.
Okay.
And this whole area will be served by gravity sewer that will flow to the mains in the streets. And the stormwater will be piped from the planned unit, this Phase 3, to the facility in Olivia Beach that serves Olivia Beach 1 and 2. Okay, and the last criteria is that the proposed units are less than the maximum, and they are, again, 47 rather than 48 that's allowed, and also that the planned unit development has 15% landscape area. That's 15% of the gross, and the tracks A through G are about 7%, but much of every single lot will remain landscaping because we only allow, we have a maximum building coverage, maximum impervious surface coverage. So that 45% that will be pervious then can contribute to that landscape amount. So that really shoots the total up, well over 40%. Okay, so your job tonight is to complete your deliberations. Well, first you have to complete the hearing. I guess I didn't put that in there, but then to complete your deliberations, consider the proposed conditions that the staff has prepared based on our site plan review meeting, and make tentative oral decision. And, I have that twice. And direct staff to bring a final order. So, if you have any other questions, I will answer them. Otherwise, I will get on with the rest of the hearing.
I do.
Yes.
First, that I would like to know how many lots are smaller than the 50 feet is the typical thing. You said there are a few 43 feet of the 47 units. How many are less than what is typical for the city? I did not
make a count of that, but maybe when the applicant comes up, they will be able to answer that question.
Okay.
I'm sure they're back there counting.
Counting them up.
Yes.
Well, and with this, if they're here listening, we're talking about the 5,000 square foot minimum. Is that correct?
That's what
the 50 feet wide.
Commissioner Hoagland's asking, yes. Oh, 50, the width.
The width, correct.
Okay.
Because that's our typical city lot size width?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to know how many are less than that.
Okay.
Deborah?
Yes?
I was wondering in that lot 121 where it was at the corner of Coast and Bard, is that part of the conditions that we've planned that they would, in fact, have it back set from the corner? Is that
I have in there a draft condition, and it is number 27. For 27, it allows them to vary the lot dimensions. And I propose that the owner shall consider reducing the number of lots facing Bard Road between Coast Avenue and Southwest Wayfinder, as it's very narrow for a corner lot. Our subdivision ordinance requires 80 in that case, or use the extra length of the lot to set the house further back from the intersection than the required setback. So I left it kind of vague, and they can discuss those options and how that would work for them and how they feel about it.
Thank you.
Is it possible to get more clarification on the height limit? How would Phase 3 with the 35-foot height limit differ from how high buildings are built in Phase 1 and 2. So, for example, if you're driving along Phase 2, I think of Olivia Beach on Anchor Avenue, there's some houses that from Anchor Avenue look like they're 2 or 3 stories high, but from the east side, there are 4 or 5 stories. So my
Kate,
question...
are you up for answering that question? I'm sorry, are you finished, or is that...
Yes, because what I would like to know is, like, eventually, 10 years from now, if this is approved and it goes through and it's built, what will somebody be looking at when they're standing on Coast Avenue and looking up at that hillside? Will we be looking at homes that are 4 to 5 stories high, or just 2 stories, or just 3 stories?
Okay. All right. Well, our current ordinance bases the height on the measurement from the existing grade. So, and that was a big change, because prior to that, people could use retaining walls, actually, to raise the level of the house before they we even started counting the 35 feet. With Olivia Beach, there's a regulating plan that calculates it differently, and that's what I'd like Kate to respond to, because she reviews a lot of those houses when they come in for building permits, and so she can probably answer it better than I can.
So in the regulating plan, there are a series of homes on Anchor Avenue that were called the Anchor Avenue Hill houses, and those were, through their PUD approval, allowed to have a height higher than 35 feet. I believe it was 37 and a half. And I think those are almost all done. There might be 1 or 2 lots not built on that are the hill houses. Everything else is a 35-foot height, but the method of measuring them is from finished grade. Still using the averaging at the center of each wall, but it's from finished grade. On the anchor houses, I believe the regulating plan that was approved tells us not to measure one side. It says to measure three of the sides, but I believe not the east side. So this phase doesn't ask for any of those variations in height measurements, as I understand it.
Is the roof included in the height?
It's to the peak of the roof. And the 35 feet is standard for everywhere in town. But it's the trick is in how you measure it. Yeah.
Right, so on the back side it could be 4 stories, on the front it's 2 stories.
As long as the average from the midpoint of each wall is 35. So I guess, Steve, that, yeah, you still could have a situation where it looks shorter from one side than it does from another, certainly.
In areas like on lot 110 where there's a 40-foot difference from the front to the back of the lot, what would happen with that?
Well, in that case, now when we're talking about existing grade, okay, so in that case you'd measure 35 feet would be a lot lower from the 40 feet than it would be from
Right.
the
So from Anemone,
higher elevation.
well,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Is any of the area too steep to build on?
It doesn't look like it, according to the planned unit development.
40 feet difference and they're going to build on it, so that's 110.
So it's permissible then.
Are there any further questions?
Yes, on lots, it said lots 1 and 4, well, I'm sorry, 104 and 105, that Southwest Wayfinder would be shortened to not impact their lots because of the hammerhead turnaround.
Okay,
Why then is 112 and 113 structured in such a way if that's the main point is not to affect 104 and 105 when you're going to have that, I'm assuming, a long driveway? Why wouldn't the street be equal into 112
Okay,
and 113?
well, there's a requirement to put in a hammerhead, which if the street gets any longer, essentially, and the hammerhead would be more intrusive into those lots, 104 and 105. The way it is, these are the two flags that I was talking about that would have the reciprocal access agreement. So it's only a 20-foot strip rather than a hammerhead.
How would you do a turnaround there?
They would have to turn around in the driveway on the lot.
Of somebody else's house?
Well, those two are the only two lots that would be using that access. So the 104 and 105 are accessing onto Dune Avenue.
Right. I'm asking from 112 and 113 going into their, where if somebody went down Southwest Wayfinder, they would have to go into them to turn around.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you have a total elevation for tract G from north to south, if that's to also be used as a public pedestrian way?
Our applicants, I bet, will provide that for us. I can't right off hand.
That it?
Yes.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, could we have the applicant's presentation, please?
Hi, I'm Walker John. I'm actually, my dad and I are 50-50 on this, but so I'm owner, developer of Olivia Beach. I appreciate your time. So the first slide here is just kind of the overall master plan. Just to kind of go back from the start of how this was designed. This is basically designed on newer urbanist principles, which really means it's just designed at a pedestrian scale. So I know we get a lot of talk about how the width of our lots and all that, but the idea really is that we're going to have smaller yards and more open public spaces, and what that does is it brings people together, it builds community. We'll show you a lot of slides about how that works, about how sidewalks and front porches interact and how it brings people at eye level and creates just interactions with people. And the other thing is how you connect people through a site. So a lot of people will design a road and streets and it'll be a wall of houses and there's no way from getting this street to that street without walking all the way out and around. So we like to design spaces through. So we have a public stairway that runs down there. We're also adding a park.
Excuse me, if you'd use the mouse to point with
okay,
the audience watching on TV can see it.
Oh, that will work.
No, the mouse is actually...
So, so from these lots up here, which is the Hunter's Highland, there's a connecting public stairway that will come all the way down here to where the pool is now. We also added a small pocket park here, so you'll have a connecting way through here to this pocket park, which will be kind of a kids park, play equipment, down down into phase 1 and phase 2. So now I'm just going to show you, hopefully you've all seen the project, but if you haven't, I just wanted to show you some slides. Do you want to go ahead? So this is just an overall aerial of the property. This was the Olivia's Green. This is the original park we put in. This is a public park. There's lots of folks that don't live in our community that come and use it. I actually see we've had weddings in the park. We've had bride and groom come and take pictures next to the this trellis we built. So, it's a park that I think everybody enjoys in the community. This is a beach stair we put in, the beach access we put in. Believe it or not, this was $1 million stair. We built it right. We built it to last for 100 years. It's got pilings. You can see that the base of it was built for the water to come up and come down. So anyway, it's a public beach access. Everybody in the community can use it. And if you don't mind stairs, it's actually a pretty nice way to get up and down to the beach. This is just a boardwalk from the park to the stair. Again, that connectivity we talk about. Here's another shot of the park with the kids playing in it. We have a little kids playground over here. Just another shot of some kids playing in the park. This is a sand volleyball court we put in as part of the park. And I just wanted to point out lots of cool little spaces we created. We have these pedestrian footbridges that go over some of the natural wetlands. There's 2 of these. And just not lots of, really our community is geared around families. Lots of kid generations that bring their kids. And, I know we get a lot of comments about clogged streets, but my feeling is if somebody has to crawl through there on their car, it doesn't bother me. Slow traffic is safe traffic, and there's lots of kids running around, running across the street, running into the park, running into their, to the homes. So there is kind of a method to that thought process. This is our fire pit again. Community space is bringing people together. I've spent a lot of time down there, and you get to know people from all over the place, and it's just kind of a good way of meeting people. This is a pool we put in last year. It's a Olivia Beach pool. There's a little workout room in here. Just a shot of people riding bikes in the community, and this again how these porches interact with people. This is a shot of, this is actually a local artist did all these cool little metal brackets for us for this fence we put up to enclose our a wetland. It's actually a stormwater detention area. And then this shot is just again the interaction of, you can see the pedestrians walking on the street and the porch and how that interaction occurs. That's it. I think that was the last shot. We already saw that one. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you the vision of where we started, why we're here. We always intended to have a phase 3. We had bought in 4 acres early on that we've been sitting on for actually quite a while, and we've kind of accumulated some properties around it. I know you'd asked about the traffic study for Hunters Island. The only reason we really included that, because we bought those lots separately. They've already been approved. I'm sure there was a traffic study done at some point on those. But was the idea that we're going to take all these and kind of make it one phase, and that there was going to be some interaction between, way to get from Hunters Island to Olivia Beach through this phase. So that's why we included it. We're really not asking for any changes to those lots other than just some connectivity. So anyway, I'm going to turn the rest over to... do you have any questions of me before I turn it over to Rich, that's our engineer?
Any questions, gentlemen?
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a couple. I don't know, perhaps these should be addressed to you, to the engineer. Yeah, I'll ask you after. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good evening. My name's Rich Catlin. I'm a land use planner. I get confused with being an engineer sometimes because I work at an engineering firm, but Dave Reese, the engineer and owner of the business, is here, and he can answer any engineering questions that you might have that I'm unable to answer. Walker gave a good overview of what Olivia Beach is all about, and I know it's easy to drill down into the details, like I've already heard some of the discussion tonight, and analyze little small pieces of the plan, but Again, this is a preliminary master plan. You're going to get another bite at the apple with the final master plan, so we'll have more opportunities to get into the details. So I'm glad he presented the overview so that you can get the big picture view of what's going on. We've spent a number of months going over design of Phase 3. As you can see with the hillside, the narrowness of the space, it's a challenging site to try to figure out how to use in a way that Walker was talking about that has connectivity for pedestrians and for cars and bicyclists and that kind of thing. How are people going to get around? They're not just perched up on the hillside and they have to go all the way around, but how do we get them down the hill? So we spent a lot of time with Deb and with Kate in planning and with Stephanie and Sam in Public Works to work out a lot of the details and come up with a plan which they agree meets city standards both in zoning and Public Works. So again, the proposal is a 6.73 acre third phase to Olivia Beach. And tonight is the first step in approval of the development. As Deb said, the zoning is RM, and the surrounding zoning, well, to the north, south, and west is R15. So as she said, under the PUD standards, this site will develop just like all the surrounding land, with the same setbacks, same height restrictions, that kind of thing. So the same type of housing. It'll be detached housing. The zoning allows apartments. We're not proposing apartments. We're proposing housing just like is found in the surrounding neighborhood. So in that sense, it's compatible in the big picture sense with the surrounding neighborhood, and that satisfies the first criterion for PUDs. I just wanted to reiterate, though, we're not asking for a VRD approval tonight. VRD approval is how the lots get built and how the homes get used. We're just here to ask for approval of the division of the land and the provision of services to those. There will be subsequent meetings, as was mentioned, next month on the VRD designation. So the VRD issue really isn't on the table.
Although I'm happy to talk about it. We're planning on applying, so I'm happy to talk about it if you guys have questions.
Okay. That's the yin and the yang of the whole thing. Okay, so Phase 3 would be developed in a single phase. No changes are proposed to the Hunter's Highland lots or to Dune Avenue. That street's built, those lots are served. 3 of the lots are already under development. They already have houses under construction. A 4th one has an existing house. So those lots are already entitled or approved. The impacts have already been analyzed. That's why we left those lots out of the traffic analysis. Those have already moved down the road. But they're incorporated into the third phase just so that they can be rebranded under the Olivia Beach banner. We'll build frontage improvements along Coast and Bard. We'll extend Wayfinder Lane as a private street a little farther into the site. Anemone Avenue would be extended up the hill from its current intersection at Coast to the east property line, just as a connectivity notion. Again, the whole idea is to provide multiple ways for cars and people to get around the neighborhood, so it's our obligation to extend the road to the property line so that when the next property develops, they have the opportunity to extend that road and provide connectivity. We asked for up to 3 years for the preliminary master plan to expire only as a contingency. I wrote that into the application early on. As we get closer and closer to approvals and permits, it's going to happen much sooner than 3 years. We don't discount that. So as far as phasing goes, it meets the second criteria. Much has already been said about construction activities and impacts on neighbors, so I won't go there. I won't speak to that at this point. Flying through my notes. I mentioned connectivity. Deb mentioned that the plan complies with lot count requirements and density. The PUD code does allow departures from lot size, lot width, lot depth, and lot frontage standards, and we have asked for a few of those in our proposal. For the most part, the lots do comply with the standards of the zone, but there are some circumstances because of the orientation of the street or the orientation on the hillside that it made sense to ask for a departure. That's why we're here for a PUD. So we believe it complies with the spirit of the PUD regulations. However, all the lots have to be built in compliance with setbacks, heights, and building coverage requirements, and we can see that those requirements will be applicable to this project once the subdivision is completed. I'm still wondering about the need for condition number 7 or 27, which Deb brought up, that corner lot at Coast and Bard. Yes, it is narrower. It's the narrowest lot on the plan, but it is buildable. If you look at many of the homes in phases 1 and 2, many of those homes would fit on that lot. The idea is that there is a pretty dramatic beach view from that corner from Coast and Bard if you look northwest. And so we were looking for a way to provide 3 homes the opportunity to enjoy that view from their front porches. That's why there are 3 lots, 119, 120, and 121 facing Bard. And we actually adjusted the angle and adjusted the widths in order for those all to enjoy that view. That's really the rationale for those 3. So again, those lots are all buildable under the current code. We haven't asked for any adjustment to that code.
That current code also includes the site triangles,
Yes.
so we don't have a problem with that 43-foot wide lot.
No, we
with
don't.
site triangles.
No.
Thank you.
So, in summary, the application that we've submitted to you meets all the requirements of the code with allowances for certain aspects of the lot design allowed by the PUD code. Staff agrees in the staff report that all the criteria are met. This is a buildable plan. I know questions have come up about the slopes. This has been reviewed by the builders of the homes, and it's a practical plan. It's a challenging site, but we've put together a practical plan.
Yeah, and I would also point out that almost all of Phase 1 and Phase 2 was challenging that way. So we built on a lot of steep lots. So, you know, we end up with this daylight basements and stuff like that, but we're very experienced at that kind of construction. So.
I glossed over some things I was going to cover, but I realized my 15 minutes was coming up and you had questions, so I wanted to allow time for your questions.
Questions, gentlemen?
Yes, on lot 121, that's the Coast Bard lot that was mentioned. Judging from what you just said, that you'd want to have a view to the northwest on 119, 120, and 121, then the obvious question of setback from Bard for 121, it would make sense to set back. It would give you more open space for 120 and 119 to have that same view.
Well, they would all have the same view if you pull the homes right up to the minimum setback, just because of the way that the road is turned. They would all have an angled view off to the northwest. And we can bring in photos to demonstrate that if that would be helpful.
But it's a 43-foot lot, and with 2, I suppose it would be a 2-story. So you might, subtract 15, you'd still have 28-foot width for your building. So, I mean, it's certainly possible.
One of the things that I think improves or enhances the ambience of Phase 1 and 2 is the fact that you left some of the original trees on the site standing. And I'm disappointed to see that you plan on removing all the trees in Phase 3, despite the fact that your arborist, in his initial recommendation to you in a letter he wrote in June, said that clusters of trees could be preserved safely. And he changed his mind in a second letter that he wrote in December of 2014. So I was wondering, could you make some changes to your plan to preserve more of the natural character of this area, because that would make it more in keeping with the neighborhood, including Phase 1 and Phase 2.
I've got one Well, go ahead.
Well, as I understood, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're only clearing initially in the streets we're building, and then it'll be on a lot-by-lot basis after that. And, I mean, typically what we do is if we have trees we can keep, we keep them. I will tell you that over the last 8 years, I mean, we've had so many blowdown. I mean, when you start taking trees out, they kind of support each other, and so, you know, if we can safely keep a tree, we do it. I mean, I actually agree with you, and when we developed Bella Beach back in the day, we actually kept a lot of the native vegetation when we could there, too. So, you know, we'll do it where we can, but it's also has to be a tree that can, you know, withstand a typical winter here in Lincoln City.
Because remember, this is on a west-facing slope. It's exposed to the winds, and so I too was disappointed, and I went back to the arborist and I said, okay, how many of these trees can you keep? And he says, start from where you're going to be digging for utilities and then march back 20 to 25 feet and see how many root zones you impact. And when you do that, it's the root zones of many of the trees on the site. So as Walker said, we'll remove trees initially just for the underground utilities, and then it's on a lot-by-lot basis through permit issued by the city.
And we can't remove trees until we actually pull the building permit on the lot basis. It's part of the city ordinance. So.
How many lots are less than 50 feet?
Two.
120,
121. 134 and 135 have, excuse me, into the microphone. 134 and 135 have frontages less than 50 feet, but their lot width is greater once you move away from the frontage. So they all have at least 50 feet of width, except for 120, 121. And the only reason those are narrower is because 119 we had made wider because it's shallower. So trying to give it comparable building space.
So the frontages that are less than 50 feet are 3.
Correct.
Well,
So that's
4.
So that would be 120, 134, and 135.
Or 3.
4. 120, 121, 34, and 35.
Yeah, there's 4.
Well, 121 has over 100 feet of frontage.
Oh,
Coast.
Okay.
If it's on, okay.
And that's really the benefit of 121 is it has a lot of Coast Avenue frontage. So that house would be, the long axis of the house would be parallel to Coast probably with a garage down slope from the house.
In phase 2, where is the beach? That's like near what lot? Or where airway? I understand on the picture, but I'm saying in your blueprint here.
I can't see what you're looking at, so.
It's near, is it tract D? I'm just trying to get an idea of where phase 3 would connect with phase 2 and where the beach access is in phase 2.
If I could,
That one up.
Phase 3, I'm trying not to use my finger. Phase 3 is on the right-hand side of the photo, and then the beach access is between the two houses. Did that answer your question? Beach access is right here,
So is that like right here?
and then phase 3 is up here.
Just for reference, what are your average lot sizes in phase 2?
40 by 100. Few around the Parker, I think, are a little smaller than that. But
Like off at 27.
and it varies. I mean, on a lot of that too, it varies on, whether it's what we call front-loaded or whether it has an alley to support it. So if it has an alley, they tend to be more narrow. If they are just fronting one street, they tend to be wider because we like to pull the garage back from the house so the house is proud of the garage. So we want to have a driveway that has access to the garage, if that makes sense.
Any further questions, gentlemen?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'd like to hear testimony in support of the application. I only see one, Rich Caitlin.
Well, he was.
Oh, I'm sorry. You signed up. Now I will hear testimony in opposition to the application. Off of this list, Carol Koffel.
Okay, tell me if you can hear me all right.
Yes, ma'am.
Carol Koffel. I live at 670 Southwest 24th Street or Drive, depending on which end of the street you see the sign. That is on the corner of 24th and Southwest Coast. I did send a letter to the Planning Department regarding this project, and I still have concerns. We've lived in town here, Lincoln City, since the early 70s. We purchased a huge lot on the corner, on 24th Street in 2003, built our home there. When Casey Roloff first started Olivia Beach, we were told 3 to 4 years, 5 at the most, and they would have Olivia Beach finished. It's been over 11 years. We have put up with construction, noise, sky trackers, bobcats going up and down the road. Some of the drivers of the sky trackers, which is like a big forklift, they have lumber that's oversized. They'll raise it up in the air, motion for cars to drive under. I contacted Aaron Briggs about it. He told me, who is the foreman of Olivia Beach at that time, and he said he had no control over his contractors. He couldn't tell them what to do. I went to the police department, talked to the chief, Killian, and he said he would check it out. Nothing has been done. I called the DMV. They said a sky tracker, anything that's on city streets that is delivering lumber going back and forth from one job site to another, has to have an orange triangle on it. It has to have lights on it, and the operator, if it is a forklift type vehicle, has to have a permit to operate it. I did receive a note from Kate a little bit ago that Aaron wrote to me, and he said that they don't have to do that. So my concern also is the work week. I don't know how many people would like to go out on the 4th of July for a picnic or a barbecue and be subjected to workers hammering, radios blaring, trucks driving up and down the road. I have a large family, and we have a lot of barbecues in our yard. And every 4th of July and Memorial Weekend, we were subjected to construction. Yes, my time's up.
Thank you, ma'am.
But thank you.
Kevin Koffel.
My name is Kevin Koffel, and I also live at 670 Southwest 24th. Yes, we are concerned with the work week. We really see no reason that people need to work on holidays. it's a very peculiar modus operandi where workers work one day and they're gone for 3 days, and then they come back and work a day. The house behind us directly has been going on. I've been in construction for over 18 years, and I've never known people to drag things out the way that these projects get dragged out. If it was a one and done, we wouldn't have an issue with the number of these problems, but it just will not end. We are concerned with the length of the project. It's inconceivable to me that Hunter's Highland can be done in 3 years, if that's the way I understood it. And we are concerned about traffic. There is a lot of traffic there, and I think, you know, whatever traffic studies have been done, we live there. We watch. We live there 24 hours a day, and I don't see. We know best about what happens, and the intersection there at Coast and Anchor is dangerous. There's a simple stop sign there. It is a dangerous intersection. You know, maybe, I really don't know. It's difficult to get people to follow the rules. You know, maybe it could be a three-way stop. It's something maybe that could be addressed a little bit more.
Is that intersection again, sir?
It's right by the pump house at
Just
20.
the name of the streets?
24th and Coast.
Thank you.
I did notice that there was some mention about construction truck concern, and we appreciate that. The neighborhood roads were never designed for this kind of use. You know, the increased traffic from simple construction, and after it's done, each one of these houses is going to have one or more vehicles associated with it. It's, you know, we realize that civilization goes forward, but we just wish that it would maybe go forward a little bit quicker.
Thank you, sir. Lewin Johnson.
Hi, I'm Lewin Johnson, and I live at 2393 Southwest Dune in the Hunter's Highland. I have the only property that is not included with Olivia Beach, and my concern is it appears in the map that they are turning the easement in front of my property into a road, Wayfinder Lane. I wonder what you're going to do with the 10 feet of my land that's on the easement if you're turning it into a road. My concerns is that that's going to, I'm thinking this is what they're thinking of making a way of their lots 15 and 16, I think it is. They're going to be turning in there to get to and from their garages and homes, and then there's going to be a playground in the area, and it's the traffic, it's the exhaust. My home it's a daylight basement home. I don't know if anyone is familiar where I live or have seen my home. I bought it in 2012, and it was in really bad, damaged condition, and I've done nothing but improve the area of my home, the existing home. I am a little bit concerned about the way my home sits. My basement to my daylight basement, I have blueprinted it up, but I've been with other funds of helping my daughter establish a business. She just opened last week in town here, and I want to turn it into a vacation rental and or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment for a family. The way that's designed on those 2 lots, I'm afraid of the cars and the exhaust, the backing up towards my property, towards where my potential renters would be. I have no problems with vacation rentals in the area. Like I said, I either do either or. It depends on what I can withstand myself, because they will be living underneath my home because there's no access to the upstairs, downstairs. I also would like to keep my existing CC&Rs that is with Hunter's Highland. Olivia Beach can have their own. I'm out to make the area look nice. My dollars invested in the same area. I moved here in 2012 to retire, and I would like to pass there. I love this area. I love the fresh air. I also have no problem with the 7-day work week that's going on right now. All the construction workers have been nice to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, you have a question?
I've got a question. You mentioned that, and I see it on one of the maps here, that your 10-foot easement is being incorporated into Wayfinder Lane, and I'm wondering, something that the city's okay with? I mean, I'm not sure if I'm asking you the right question.
If this happens, I have a deck, a beautiful deck that I built. I took this man's dream in Hunter's Highland, and I kept it. And my deck goes out, and I sit there and barbecue, just like everyone else. But if there's cars going there, their exhaust is going to go up there. If I have a tenant right there, there's no more than probably from the blacktop 10 feet to the front door of my future apartment and where my deck exists right now. If they could figure out something to ease it, would be fine.
It depends on the terms of the easement, what the reasonable expectation of the use of that easement was going to be, whether it's appropriate or not.
It wasn't.
It wouldn't be appropriate for me to give a legal opinion or anything like that.
If you could just clarify that.
Yeah, find out for us on that, because I
Well,
do see it where
I guess I can tell you, I can find out what the easement says,
Right.
but I can't tell you, whether that's appropriate or not. That's a legal determination.
No, we can't answer it now.
Pardon me?
We can't answer the question, Lewin's question now in any case, until you research the easement.
I think the suggestion would be, if you want to look at the easement, then I think we need to at least leave the record open so that we can get that submitted in the record, and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Are there any others, any testimony from public agencies or any additional testimony?
I just want to note you did receive, Ms. Hinton was ill, but did send some comments, and they were submitted into the record. I believe they were also sent to the applicant, so that, that now if you do not close the hearing and close the record, then Ms. Hinton will be able to, under your rules, review the hearing, and then will be able to participate if, in fact, you don't end this hearing this evening.
Thank you.
I should mention that we also had some other comments that we received, and Kate put those at your place. We had one from GNS, email from GNS 1121. We had a comment from William Hu.
And we asked the question about the height. Are you satisfied with the answer to that question?
No.
Not yet? No? Okay. Well, this would be a good time for the applicant to come back up and answer those two questions.
I have also some more questions.
I just want to make it simple. If I'm standing on Coast Avenue 10 years from now, assuming this development goes through, what am I going to see when I look up the hillside? Am I going to see a two-story house?
They're going to be
From my side.
Right, yeah. They'll be 2 to 2.5. 2.5 where...
See what I see when I stand at the bottom of the steps up to...
No, that was intentional, and that the intention of that was actually to create a streetscape up on Anchor. And so, if you look at it, as you actually pointed out, that from Anchor, they look like 1.5-story houses. It was just dealing with a really challenging topography, and so we were basically dealing with two streetscapes. And so Lawrence Kumar, who actually did the master plan, came up with this idea of, let's build these tall houses that create a streetscape up on Anchor, and they're on the alley side, and they were also designed to kind of bookend that stairway coming up. But we're not asking for anything other than what every other builder, developer in Lincoln City has to comply with. So there'll be, 2.5 story, maybe a couple of 1.5 stories.
Thank you.
This might be for staff. How many of the 89 lots in the phase 1 and 2 are VRDs right now?
I think I want to say 25-ish. Does that sound in there?
I can find that exact number if I didn't include it. I did give you the number that's within 300 feet of and that was 20. And that's not necessarily in Olivia Beach previous phases.
Right.
But I can count the number in Olivia Beach earlier phases and get that to you if you'd like. Okay.
You opened your statement with the idea is for smaller yards to build a community and to interact with each other. You also stated that you intend to build it as a VRD. They seem to counteract when you intend to build as a VRD, but then you're also saying it's a community.
No, what I said was we tend to build smaller lots with bigger public space, so more shared spaces. And I actually think that's pretty compatible with vacation rentals because it's built infrastructure for vacationers to come here and enjoy. So we meet. I mean, all of our homes that are in that have a VRD meet all the off-street parking requirements. I mean, honestly, the lots we're asking for are significantly larger than anything we've built to date. So.
Well, while we've opened it to the VRD, that Wayfinder Street, we might want to consider that too narrow to put VRD in at 20 feet wide, if that's what I heard it to be.
Oh, no, that's the lane up above. Is that Wayfinder?
Wayfinder.
Track to E. And not only that, but it also takes that lot 103, it takes percentage of her property also. So.
With due respects, her lot's not included in the PUD, so none of her area is included in that.
Yeah, and to answer her question, she's going to remain out. She's under the old Hunter's Island CCNRs. They're not going to be. We need to look into that easement. As I understood it, the easement was actually a joint access easement. When I purchased the 7 lots on the corner, if I recall, that lane there was to the benefit of both properties. So anyway, and the concern on the width of the street as it relates to VRDs is what?
I live in a very dense VRD neighborhood, and and the streets are fairly narrow, but they're not that narrow, and passage for emergency vehicles is awfully sketchy.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about narrow
But
streets
width
in
would-
with VRD uses.
Sure.
VRDs
there a
are a
width-
lot more casual.
Width that makes, I mean, I'd rather just figure it out, now rather than,
Debbie? Debbie, what's a reasonable width for a street that's got...
and there is no
VRDs
parking on that street, but 24 feet is,
So if there's no parking on the street, it's not an issue.
yeah, this is just, honestly, this acts like a private driveway for all the lots up here. There's no public through access there. If it meant putting no parking signs or striping or whatever needed to happen there, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, the fire marshal will require that to stripe it and sign it as a fire lane.
I'm sorry to get ahead of the game on the VRD question.
No, I'd rather do it now. Again, we're going to be here in a month with that application, so if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And the other, your request to push out the PMP expiration date for 3 years, why? I mean, that seems to be a concern, how long this project is.
Yeah, well, there's two things. What we're talking about is, when are we going to put the infrastructure in? We're actually wanting to do that this summer, towards the end of July, early August. And then some of the folks that have concerns about the construction. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm sure Casey didn't think we would be here now still building houses in Phase 2, but, who would have known what, we all went through a kind of a crazy world in 2008 and 2009. So, I'll tell you a story that the bank that loaned us the money on Olivia Beach had 17 builders, and 16 of them went bankrupt. So we stuck it out through a lot of really tough times.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
We stuck it out through a lot of really tough times. I mean, unfortunately, Mr. DiLoretto didn't make it, and the ones on the corner, there's a lot of tough stories happened to really good people. It wasn't our intention to stretch this out, but, we'll build them as fast as we can sell them, and we'll try to do better on the construction stuff. We manage a lot of subcontractor crews. We do have rules. Sometimes they do things and we correct them. And all I would say is that we'll try to do better with our neighbors on that score. So.
Do you have any more questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was surprised to learn right now that that Phase 1 and 2 only has about 20 to 25 VRDs. I would assume there would have been more.
It might be. I know the number that goes through our sister company. I don't own the company, but Casey still owns Olivia Beach Cottage Rentals. And I thought the number they told me was 24. There are some folks that I think have VRDs that manage them basically themselves and have a local contact or something here. But I think there's maybe 4 or 5 of those, so maybe it's 30.
Is your development of Phase 3 contingent on getting VR zoning for it?
Well, it's going to be, I don't know if I'd use that strong a language, but it's certainly, if we didn't get VR zone, I'm not sure what we would do there. It might be something a little different. I don't know. But, our intent was always to make this part of Olivia Beach. I mean, I was just looking at the original 2005 master plan, and that whole hillside says future phase. So it was always our intent. I actually asked I've asked numerous times to be in the VR zone. I'd said, sign whatever, the down zone thing. I was like, tell me what to sign. I won't sue you guys, I promise. But, evidently I didn't get put in, so we're going to be asking for it. So.
Is Phase 1 and 2 attracting more year-round residents? Have you seen a change in who's buying?
Yeah, we have some, and we have folks that 2 or 3 folks that bought early on that used it for a vacation rental and then moved there when they retired. We have another couple that we just signed a purchase and sale agreement that owned early on, sold their house because their kids were, they're busy with kids. And they're going to buy another home and retire here and live full time. So So we get some of that. It's a mix. I mean, I think it's like a lot of communities here, so.
The other question I have, 5 of the 7 non-buildable tracks do have structures on them, like steps, or there's the pump station, or the Wayfinder Lane. Is there any, so only 2 of them really don't have, are just green space, and Phase 1 and Phase 2 are really attractive because there is so much green space.
Right, yeah.
Any chance of putting any more additional green space, empty tracks in Phase 3?
Well, I'd rather not, if you're asking me a direct question. But I mean, I think it's actually a pretty good mix. If you look at the way we've done those stairways in the past, they're actually very. I mean, they've got landscaping on both sides. We'll put some lighting, low voltage lighting, so that if you walk back from the beach and it's late, you have a way to get up there. They'll be very attractive spaces, and the park is actually meant to be more of a kids park, so it'll have more playground equipment than we've put in the first phase. So hopefully that'll be good for the local community.
Of the 89 lots, how many have houses on them in the phases 1 and 2?
I think we've got 10 or 11 lots left. So now a few owners bought the lot next to them, and so just to have as side yard or whatever. And so I have, I think, 10 or 11 in inventory. So, but there are some vacant lots that aren't built on that I don't own. But hopefully that answers your question.
Other questions? No. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Now, we have the question on the table whether to leave this open for the introduction of new evidence on the easement. Do we want to make a motion to that effect?
Well, today's goals are to complete the deliberations and for the proposed conditions to complete that.
We wouldn't be able to complete under those circumstances. We might not either, given the option of additional testimony from.
Can I?
Please.
Script is section 197763, paragraph 6A states that upon request, the commission must either grant a continuance for no less than record open for no less than 7 days to permit any participant an opportunity to provide additional. Does any person who participated desire to request a continuance to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence, or request that the record be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument?
That's a question for you folks. No?
Now
we
do understand that the commission itself has indicated it would like to see the easement, and in which case I recommend you leave the record open for no less than 7 days so that we can enter it into the record, and then we can talk about it.
Yes, I would recommend that we do, because if, in fact, Wayfinder Lane can't be built, you don't have access to those lots, the flag lots at the very least. And so if that easement is not a legitimate road base, we need to know that going in.
So is 7 days enough? Do you, what's our next meeting?
The 16th.
So,
the next meeting is the 16th.
But we would have the information, if you could gather the information prior to that and make it part of the record.
So leave the record, I guess.
I'm proposing we leave the record open for 7 days to provide that additional information. I also understand that gives our other 2 commissioners the option of sitting into the deliberations after they review the record.
Yes. So you would need a motion to leave the record open. Well, first of all, close the hearing. Secondly, leave the record open until June
10th at noon?
June 10th at noon. And after, we would ask the applicant if they agree to that. And if he does or does not, then fine, we'll note it for the record. And then after that, they would have the opportunity to submit final written argument after the close of the record. I just don't know that there's enough time.
Well, we don't, if it's keeping the record open for the commission's own purpose, do they have to do 7 days, or could they do it shorter?
Well, no.
Since no party is asking for it.
No party, so if it's just for you, I guess no one's prejudiced if you only leave it open for 4 days.
How long would it take you to research that, to find out what that looks like?
We'll probably get, I think we could have the information tomorrow, actually.
Well, how does that affect us? We're
Well,
still not going to meet again for 2 weeks.
If we just keep it open for a few days, then the applicant still would have the opportunity to rebut it in a timely manner.
Mr. Chair?
Sir.
With Reese and Associates, I'd like to make a clarification on the Wayfinder Lane easement. The topographic survey shows the easement itself, and I think the one thing of clarification here is that it's already paved. It's paved beyond that lot. So it's not that it's going to be built, it's already built. So that's just a clarification. You know what you want after that, but I just want to bring that up.
Thank you.
So that road exists at this moment?
It does, yes.
Yeah, the question really is who has the right to use it, how much, really, is what I think we're really getting to. And as I say, we can get a copy of that easement and see what it says, and then draw your conclusions or what have you. As I say, I think we can probably have that by this time tomorrow. So like if you kept the record open, say till Friday, just to be sure, and then the applicant would have the chance to respond to whatever that evidence is. I think they have to have a week, don't they, to respond?
Well, no. The statute does say leave the record open for a minimum of 7 days, and the record's open, which means anybody could submit additional, not just the city who's making the request. So, although I'd like to say let's just leave it open for a day or two, I'd suggest a motion to leave the record open until 5 p.m. on the 9th and give the applicant until 5 p.m. on the 16th to submit final written argument. And that gives everybody their 7 days. And continue deliberations to 6 p.m. on the 16th.
I like that.
I have another issue that I need to ask you folks about, and I think it could be kind of the elephant in the room in regards to this application, and that's the southwest Anemone Avenue, because, as I mentioned earlier, that was not on the map of the notice of public hearing, and it was not mentioned in the description of the project that Anemone Avenue might someday connect to Southwest Dune, which would be south of Phase 3. And I think there are people who live in that neighborhood south of Phase 3 that might have been here tonight if they had known.
Well, that isn't a part of tonight's PUD, though, is it? That's not a part of this application.
The street is.
The street is, but the continuance of it onto the adjacent property would be a matter for the owners of those properties. In other words, it wouldn't happen without them initiating it.
You're saying because the street's not on this, nobody, it wouldn't be there. Within 500 property.
Is all the properties within 500 feet of this notified of this going on?
Yes.
So, I mean, they were notified that
Oh,
this was going on.
they were notified. I'm just saying it was not in this.
Okay. Stephanie, our city engineer, just brought up the conditions and pointed out number 11 asks for the applicant to provide evidence of an easement for the east 10 feet of Wayfinder Lane, which is what we're talking about. But they'll still have to, if you want to have that before you deliberate, we still need to keep the record open.
I would
so that we can do that.
Have that.
Okay.
So I think we're at the point where possibly discussing whether or not we had some kind of error in the notice. Is that
The question.
That was
My question, is there, I mean, there's the implied development of that street that would someday connect with Southwest Dune. So my question is, did the notice need to inform people who live within that area that that might someday happen, and as a result of this Phase 3 development? Not that the Olivia Beach people are responsible for it at all, but, you know, there is that street pointed right at them.
Seems to me that since it's not in this application, that it doesn't need to be notified.
I can do this. If you're going to leave the record open and allow for a final written argument to be submitted and continue this, I will review with staff the notice that went out and see if perhaps there was a deficiency. If there is a problem, I'll report that to you. And we'll
We can close the hearing and leave the record open?
you would need a motion to close the hearing, leave the record open, and give the applicant 7 days to submit final written argument.
Richard, you said something about the applicant having something to say about whether we left the record open or closed it, or the dates.
Yeah, typically when we, it has to do with the 120-day rule. If an applicant agrees to leaving the record open, then it doesn't count. That time doesn't count toward the 120 days. So if you do pass that motion, I'd want to turn to the applicant and ask if they agree or consent to that. If they say, yes, we consent, then we're not going to count the delay.
And if they say no?
Then we'll still count the days.
So I can just add something. Typically, when we have a development, in fact, Hunter's Highland's a perfect example of it, where there's a chance that someday we may want a road to continue through. We require that road to be put in and terminate at the property line or something, because we want connectivity. We want options for people to go through. So it's very typical, very, very common to have a road that someday might go on to adjacent property, to have that in the development and be approved. It's perfectly normal.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm not addressing whether the notice was adequate or not. I'm just saying that it's common that such a thing happens.
I'll recommend that we close the record. Or
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we close the hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we need a motion
I have a motion that we would keep the record open for 7 days.
till
5 p.m. on the 9th.
PM on the 9th.
PM on the 9th.
Second?
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Need a motion to give the applicant 7 days to submit final written argument, 5 p.m. on the 16th.
I make a motion to give the applicant 7 days to reply until 5 p.m. on the 16th.
I second.
In favor?
Aye.
And just to be clear, that's final written argument, not, does the applicant consent to leaving the record open?
Maybe somebody can explain what, I guess, timeline, what does this mean?
I believe it means a 2-week delay, so there would be 2 weeks that would be told if you consent.
Okay. So in 2 weeks, we'll have...
Final deliberation.
Okay. Okay. What's the word, consent? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Would be before.
So the only thing left would be to, do we have anything to do? Continue deliberations. You can't, when you have deliberations. Deliberations are announced to occur at the next meeting.
Deliberations
16th,
will be. All right, I'm going to move on. Old business?
Did I miss, did you vote on the written argument?
Yes.
Okay. and announce that deliberations will be continued on the 6th.
So you announced it. That should be enough.
Proper.
Richard, that old business, you had some change in the agenda here?
I guess the first thing in old business is the goals. You'd asked for like a summary of what the discussion was, and we provided that to you, so I just wanted you to know that. I don't know if you had any questions or comments on that.
See those otherwise.
It's from the last meeting.
I was good with it.
So,
Didn't say anything about drones, but I was good with it anyhow.
yeah, we can't do drones. And the other item is, had at your seat tonight, a final recommendation regarding the VR rezoning proposal for the southeast and northeast quadrants. The meat of it is just on, at the bottom of page 2, where it says the Planning Commission recommends that the City Council not amend the comp plan, change the map designation, and not amend the zoning map designation in any of the subject lots or parcels. So I just want to make sure that accurately reflects your decision, and if so, it would be appropriate to have a motion to approve the final recommendation.
Gentlemen?
I think it represents it, and so I would move to approve the final
Recommendation.
recommendation.
A second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
And you had new business?
We have none?
None. Reports and comments?
I have none at this point.
City Attorney?
No, sir.
Planning Commissioners?
None.
We have public comments on non-agenda items not involving a public hearing. None. Next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, June 16th, 2015. We'll be having deliberations on this matter.
That's it.
All right, we're adjourned.